remember halfway through, like, no, I missed the first half of things. So today is going to be all about tech, like tech when it comes to creating your courses. So what I would love to hear, if you have any specific questions or anything that's just like, oh, I really, really want to hope that we address this today, you can just pop it in the comments and just be like, yes, please answer this, or can we talk about this? And even if it's not tech related, you can also put that in the comments, be like, these are the questions or things I'd like to chat about when it comes to today. So feel free, if you're just joining us, to like put your comments in the chat about what you're really hoping to learn today. If there's anything specific you'd like to walk away with, I'd love, love, love to hear. And we're just going to give it a few more minutes and see if people trickle in. I know it's like midweek, kind of midday if you're on the Pacific side like I am. So it can be a little bit of tricky timing. So we'll see who else is joining us. Oh, there's Finette popping in. Awesome. Oh, and Robin's coming again too. Yay, so many familiar faces. I love it. Love, here we go. Hello, hello. Hi, Robin. So nice to see you again. How's it going?
I'm good. The last one was so good. I had to join in.
I can't hear you. It says you're unmuted, but I can't hear you. Love tech. All the surprises.
I can hear Robin.
You can't hear me. Can you hear me now?
All right, here we go. All right, let me try that again. There we go. Hold on. I know what's happening. That was funny. I hope no one else was speaking. There we go. I can hear. I go. I hit mute on my own sound. That was great. I was like, I thought I hit pause on the music, but I hit mute. I was like, I can't hear you. So if anyone else was also speaking to me in the last 2 minutes, I totally ignored you. I'm sorry. Okay, I can hear you all now. How are you doing, Robin?
I was saying I'm good, and the last call was so good I had to join in for this one too.
Yay. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited. It's so nice. We have so many fun faces here. So what I was saying, for those of you who are just hopping on now, is if you have anything in particular, like any burning questions around tech when it comes to creating your course, or any questions in general that you really want us to answer today, just let me know, pop them in the comments, and we'll be sure to dive into that. So today's whole focus is tech. And so I'm going to be talking about course platforms, because I know that is like everyone is just like has their own favorite course platform, and it can feel really daunting to be like, how do I choose which one? And then also we're going to talk a bit about, tech when it comes to creating your course materials, like recording your videos, creating your workbooks, that type of thing. But there's going to be lots of time at the end just for open Q&A. So even if you have questions around creating courses, workshops, group programs, all those things, and it's not tech specific, that's okay. We're still going to be able to dive into that. Okay, so I've heard so many comments from course creators on which course platforms to use or not to use. So the opinionated take, and I love the little like devil emoji. It's like, yeah, you're going to hear all my opinions. And that is very much where we're going to start, is by talking about course platforms, because I don't know about you, but this is definitely something that when I was first getting into the course creation space, I just spent so long reading blog posts and reviews and hearing everyone like what they had to say. And for a while it was like Teachable is the only way to go, and then it was like Kajabi is the only way to go, and like so there always seems to be one that's like very much popular. And so I actually take a slightly different stance on things, and this is where my opinion is that there really isn't like the one ultimate course platform. There's not one that is like perfect for everyone. Everyone should use this. It's the ultimate thing. At the end of the day, I think choosing your course platform is a very like personal thing, because there's going to be different components of the platform that really matter and are really a priority to you. And so that's what I want to talk through today, is the different things that you should think about when you're choosing a platform. And then I will give you kind of my recommendations based on my own experience and what I've seen for clients in terms of ones that I think you should definitely look at. So I know Finette says like moving away from Kajabi, just got the bill for the upcoming year and I am done paying through the nose. Yes, Kajabi is so freaking expensive. Yes. It is it's kind of wild. So let's find you an alternative, but then we're going to talk about something different. Yeah. So first and foremost, the thing that I like to remind everyone when it comes to course platforms, for the types of courses that most of us are creating, is that all the platforms do the same thing. Like at the end of the day, the actual functionality of them is not that different. You know, they all are going to have an opportunity for you to upload videos. They're all going to have an opportunity for to share PDFs and links. They're all going to let you get your students into them so they can access your materials. So I never want anyone to feel like stressed, like, oh, if I choose this platform, like it's not going to work for what I need it to do. At the baseline, like very basic level, they all have the same functionality. Now, there are more complicated things that we can layer on that sometimes it's nice to have tech support us with. But especially when you're at the beginning of creating your course, like maybe you've never created one before, or like you just want something like low stress, I really want to just like emphasize the fact that like you can't really make a wrong choice if they're all going to work the way you need them to. So where I recommend starting when you're thinking about course platforms is I like to kind of group them into three categories. There's the category of the ones that are kind of like soup to nuts. They do everything for you. They host your videos, they host your PDFs. They're very like, I kind of like to call them like out of the box platform. Like you just open the box and they're ready to go. So these are the ones that we see like Teachable, Thinkific, Podia, Podia. I never know how to pronounce that one. I say Podia. Those are the ones that like you just open them up and they work. They host your videos for you. It's pretty straightforward. These are ones that are really nice if you just don't feel like battling tech and you just want them to work and you don't want to have to stress about it a lot. The downside of these ones is you don't have a ton of control over the visual design of your platform. So if aesthetics and beauty are really important to you, then sometimes these ones can be like a little bit trickier because you're pretty much locked into like you can change your sidebar color and like not too much else. On the other end of the spectrum, we have the course platforms that are essentially a plugin that you put on your WordPress website. So it's self-hosted. If you have WordPress, you know, one of the most popular plugins is LearnDash. And this is where you have absolute, complete control over everything. But the downside is you have complete control over everything, which means you are responsible for absolutely everything. And I will just put the caveat on. I learned this the hard way. I started on Thinkific. I moved to LearnDash and I'm actually moving off of LearnDash to something different. So I will kind of share my journey and how I got there. But I just like to kind of share all of the options with you. So like I said, with the self-hosted websites, there's kind of the pros and cons, which is like you definitely can make things look exactly the way you want. There's a lot more ability for things like, you know, if you want to add on extra plugins that do fancy things like badges and points and all that stuff, you know, you can get really, really fancy with the functionality. But like I said, that there's a huge tech learning curve. So if you are not a developer or you cannot afford a developer, it is not something that I recommend because there is so much for you to have to set up. And I know when I first set up my LearnDash site, when people purchased, they got like dumped into like spooky backend WordPress. Like it looked like a back alley. Like they were like, where am I? What's happening? It's cold and dark in here and I'm scared. So it took a lot of custom coding to make that not happen. So those are kind of like the opposite ends of the spectrum. And then we have kind of in the middle part, the ones that give you more visual control, but either have a higher price point or they have kind of more of the functionality. I usually put Kajabi kind of in the middle of these because you have a bit more control, but there's a bit more done for you as well. And it's super, super expensive. And the new one that kind of has just recently come onto the scenes is Learn Plus, which is through Thrivecart. And this is very much a happy medium because it sets up your course shell the same way that we would see in Teachable or Thinkific, these types of things. You have a ton of visual control, which I personally love, but you are also responsible for hosting your own videos. So it kind of takes the best of both worlds, but there is a little bit more responsibility on you. But for me, I was like, I'm going to move to Learn Plus because I want the aesthetic beauty of things, but I am ripping my hair out with LearnDash. It was very stressful. Yeah, Jennifer says, I'm a WordPress person and I'm a little leery of DIYing with something like LearnDash. Absolutely. It is not for the faint of heart. You can do some really beautiful things with LearnDash, especially if you combine it with a membership plugin. So if you've ever been on like, I can't remember the name of the program, the one that Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi do together is on a LearnDash and Memberinium site. So it's like beautiful and it probably cost them like $50,000 to build. So it's one of those things, if you have a ton of money and a ton of time, you can get it really nice. But for people who are just getting started, it's not really something that I recommend. So that's kind of the first thing, is to think about kind of the options in terms of like completely set up and done for you, but maybe a bit less control versus control over everything, but control over everything. Then when you're thinking, the next kind of thing to think about when choosing your platform is the integrations that you need. So do you already have like mailing list software like ActiveCampaign or ConvertKit that you need it to speak to your course platform for when people enroll? Is that something where you can maybe use like Zapier to connect the two of them? You have other integrations that you may need, like cart software. So for
Yeah,
instance,
babe.
when I first started on Thinkific, I had to use Zapier to connect ActiveCampaign. And when I was getting frustrated with their cart and I wanted to like connect it to a better shopping cart software, that was when I actually decided to move off of Thinkific, because it just kept bumping me up the payment plan and it was starting to get frustrating. So thinking about like, what is the existing software that you're already using, if any, and thinking about like looking at your course platforms, how do they play together? How nicely do they play? And like, how does that compete with your priorities? So we've kind of talked about like control over the visuals, integrations. And then the third thing that I like you to think about is, do you want something that hosts your videos and your materials for you? Or is your platform going to require you to have a separate host? So videos are the biggest one because they're the biggest file size. So some of the ones like Teachable and Thinkific, they'll actually host your videos for you. And they actually even have like built-in captioning options too for like uploading transcripts. Whereas some of the other players like self-hosted on WordPress or Learn Plus require that you host your videos elsewhere. So like on Vimeo or something like that, which is an additional cost. So as you can see, there's a lot of moving pieces when it comes to choosing a platform, which is why it's so frustrating when you're Googling like, which course platform should I use? And like every blog post has a different opinion, being like, you have to use Teachable or you have to use this. So what I recommend you do when you're thinking about your platform is determine like, what is your biggest priority? Is your biggest priority choice over how it looks and the aesthetics? Is your biggest priority like not having to stress about the tech and just having something that just works? Is your biggest priority that it like fits in with your funnel software, for instance? And this is going to look different for different people. And so that's why giving yourself some flexibility to be like, I'm not sure. So I'm going to narrow it down to maybe my top 2 choices and then sign up for trials and play around with it. Set up a dummy course, see what it looks like, kind of play. Because, you know, I have some people, like I had one client who was on Podia and had another client who was on Podia. One was like, this is the most amazing platform I've ever used. And the other person was like, if I have to look at my course in this one more time, I'm going to start crying. So it's a very like personal experience. So before I kind of go into like the 3 different platforms I've played with and, you know, my personal thoughts, I would love to know what questions you have for me based on kind of what I've shared so far. Either feel free to either put them in the chat, or you can just like use the raise hand feature on Zoom and you can actually like unmute yourself and go for it.
Will you also, oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Go for it.
Sorry. So I'm real, that's where kind of I'm between platforms right now. I've switched everything over. And so I'm wondering, as you go through this, are you going to talk about the aspects of the landing pages and how they all integrates with your coursework and all of that? Because that's, I'm like confused on like how to do that with the different platforms. Like, is it a separate thing? Is it with the website? Like, I don't know, like if you're doing it from social media and trying to gather the information to your platform, whichever platform you're using, like I'm confused.
Yeah, for sure. Oh my goodness, such a great question. So when it comes to landing pages, most course platforms actually do have a functionality for a basic landing page. I know like I've seen it on Thinkific, I've seen it on Teachable, that type of thing. That being said, I have found that like the design elements tend to really force you into something really specific. Like you have to put a banner here and you have to do this here and you have to say this way. There tends to be a lot of structure around it. So in general, if you already have a website, I recommend building your sales page or your landing page on your website. And then what you can do is just link your sales buttons to your checkout. So if you're on one of those more like done for you platforms like Thinkific or Teachable, they will give you a link that actually skips over their landing page and goes right into checkout. So then you're still directing people into your platform, but you can set up the landing page the way that you want. How does that feel for you? Oh, I think you're muted again.
Yeah, that's making more sense. I'm like between 3 platforms, so I'm kind of trying to figure out, like, my biggest thing is if the URL that comes from like IG,
Mhm.
and most of those have, like, for example, Active Campaign, it's a HTML code, and
Mhm.
it's not a see, I'm not techie. It's not a URL thing.
Mhm.
So I was trying to figure, do I need a separate thing from my website, or do I need a separate thing from Active Campaign to be able to go to, whichever the platform I'm using? Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. So I would actually look at the flow as being like you have your social media, your Instagram or whatever, and it links to a URL on your website, which is the landing page of like join the community or sign up for the academy, whatever that is. They check out into the academy, and either if your platform has a direct integration that can tag it in Active Campaign for you, or you might have to set up a Zap through Zapier, which is what I had to do in Thinkific, where it goes, once they've bought this thing, it adds this tag. So instead of starting with Active Campaign, the Active Campaign part's at the end.
Okay, so it'd be like the IG to your website sales page, and then a Zap to Active Campaign.
Website sales page to course checkout, like platform checkout, and then Zap to thing. Now it's always the fun, right? All the tech stuff.
But the course checkout would be under the actual platform.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
They should, when you're building your product in the platform, there should be an option at some point to grab the checkout URL, and then it kind of jumps over the course landing page and puts you right into the checkout.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Such a great question. Any other questions before I kind of share my platform journey?
Yeah, hi Emily. I had
Hi,
one
Kelly.
question.
Yeah.
How are you today?
Oh, good, thanks.
Great. Thank you for hosting these. These are so valuable, and it's just great to get professional insights, into our issues, problems, and hear other people's not issues and problems, but questions. I
Yeah.
don't want to sound like we're all, sick or ill or something. But anyway, so oops, I just lost my webcam. Sorry. Didn't mean to make everyone nauseous there. So I'll hold it. My question is, when looking at the various platforms, and you might get into this in a second, what would you say are like maybe the top 3 tools, features, capabilities, functionalities that a good, solid platform for beginners?
Mhm.
Because I'm thinking about my learners and my clients, customers, and I just was wondering and I wanted to do like a little infographic or something along those lines to help them, kind of here's what to look for.
Mhm.
And I just was wondering, not that I expect free advice or help, I want you to write it for me or anything, but I was just wondering there's so many different features and tools and functionalities. But I was thinking, again, for beginners, newbies.
Yeah. Yeah, such a great question. And so I think you may have missed this in the beginning, but kind of to reiterate is I think that the best advice that we can give to anyone when they're choosing a course platform is that at the base level, they all kind of do the same thing, which is like the things that they should look for and the decision they have to make. I think the biggest one for beginners is does it host your videos for you or not? Because a lot of people get like freaked out at the idea of having to pay like for Vimeo to host their videos versus a platform that will host it for them. But I think especially the way most people create courses now is it's like I either have video, I have audio, or I have like PDF workbooks. And like we know, like as learning designers, we know how like complicated you can get, but most people are not, authoring e-learning in Articulate software and then making sure that it's SCORM compliant and like all the things that we see in the corporate design world. So they don't need to worry about that. Sometimes people are like, oh, does it do quizzes and surveys? And I find for the most part, they all do as well, or there's a workaround. So I think for the biggest thing that beginners need to think about is like, sign up for a trial and can you figure it out? Because if you don't have a tech VA supporting you, if you don't have a developer helping you, it's like, is this simple enough that it's like set up a course shell and just run with it?
Okay, thank you. That helps really pinpoint what I should pinpoint in helping other people. And I think it's just, is it intuitive to you or for you?
Yeah. Yeah. 'Cause the
Is-
best platform is the one that you want to use. I think
Yeah.
yeah.
It's just, I think many people get overwhelmed by all the bells and whistles,
Mhm.
and want to, not that many people know what Scorm or Articulate or Captivate or, things like that are, but, they want, I want to be able to have transcripts and videos and the transcripts done for me and this and that and that and that.
Mhm.
And it gets very overwhelming. So they think they need a huge, monstrous $1,000 a month plan
Mhm.
or
Yeah.
whatever.
That's how they all end up on Kajabi because they're like, well, if
Yes.
other people are talking about it, better do
Yes.
Kajabi.
Yeah,
But as we
that's
know,
what I was thinking of. I don't think
Yeah.
it's $1,000 a month, but yeah.
no, it's pricey though, for sure.
Yes. All right.
Um,
Thank you.
You're so welcome. I love what Camille mentioned here in the comments, saying that they started with New Zenler because of the training community. So New Zenler is actually one I haven't personally used, but I know my friend Jono, who is like a course creation expert as well, is a huge fan of it. And then it does have like a lot of functionality for a lower cost. So I can't speak to it personally because I've never been inside a course on New Zenler and I haven't set up a course on New Zenler myself, but I've heard really good things about it. So I think that's something that, can be another option for people to explore. Kind of, it's not one that we see thrown around a lot because Teachable and Kajabi kind of like dominate the space. And it's like, yay, a new platform. It might be something worth trying out, Finette. I know you've been on the hunt to find something. And then another good point, this is something I haven't looked into, but I have heard that even though you can list videos on YouTube like unlisted so people can't see them, I have heard that it does violate YouTube terms of service. So this is something where I say, like, if your platform doesn't host your videos, hosting on like Wistia or Vimeo or something like that is necessary for sure. Yeah, I know it was, I saw this come up the other day. Someone was talking about getting all their videos removed because it like violated terms of service. This is, yeah, not something I've personally seen, but I heard about it for sure. Okay, amazing. So many great questions. And if you think of other questions, feel free to pop them in the chat for sure, and we'll keep going. So I just want to share a little bit about like my own journey with course platforms and kind of how I've ended up moving twice. So when I first got started for my very first course, which was Group Call Confidence, I ended up on Thinkific because Thinkific is a Canadian platform. So I was like, yeah, I'm Canadian, I want to support Canadian, this is great. And I just wanted something that worked and was like easy and simple. And it very much is. So I'm a big fan of Thinkific and the fact that it just works. The things that I found that kind of gave me the growing pains enough to start wanting to look elsewhere when I was building out more robust courses was that you have very little control over the look and feel unless you hire someone to do like some really intense like custom coding on top of things, which is really only necessary for huge schools. And I also found a lot of the integrations I needed were like kind of tucked on higher payment plans. So it started to get to the point where I was paying a lot per month to be able to integrate things with ActiveCampaign. And if I wanted to be able to integrate it with ThriveCart so I could have a better checkout experience for my student, it was going to be very much like a lot more expensive. So I had seen some courses that were self-hosted on WordPress, and my website was on WordPress already. And I was like, okay, great. Like, I love my web developer. Like, let's do this, because then I can design it exactly the way that I want. And I love something that's beautiful. I love something that's aesthetic. And I was like, this is great. So I was able to kind of design things, and I did the whole migration, bringing everything over onto Thinkific from Thinkific over onto LearnDash. And like I kind of mentioned earlier, I had some nightmares in the sense of like the actual being able to connect ThriveCart to LearnDash was fine, but until I did some custom coding and custom redirecting, my students were getting like plopped into backend WordPress being like, where do I go? What do I click? And so we got that sorted. And then all of a sudden, like the lesson sequencing was off. And then all of a sudden, like it was randomly not letting people progress through lessons, or it was jumping the modules ahead. And even though I combed through all the buttons and I ticked all the things, I was just getting to the point where I'm like, I just want something that works. And I was getting so frustrated. And I realized, I was like, this is just like, it's so much tech work. And even though I'm really grateful to be supported by an awesome team and have people who can do a lot of that for me, what really kind of was like the hammer in the coffin of my relationship with LearnDash was when I was like, I had this idea for like a pop-up resource kit that I wanted to create and like a workshop that went with it. And I was like, I can't just whip this together myself. Like I actually like cannot build and set all this up the way I want it to be able to act quickly. And that was like a deal breaker for me. So then I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't really want to go back to Thinkific. What am I going to do? And then it was like perfect, beautiful timing. Thrivecart, which was already the cart software that I use, announced that they were releasing their own platform called Learn Plus. And I was like, oh, like a new platform kind of comes with like pros and cons because they're still ironing out the kinks and that type of thing. So I kind of like hung back for like a month or two to see how things were going to go. And just all the amazing reviews started coming in. And I was just like, okay, I like this. And then I saw that you have a lot of control over the visual design of your course. So you can actually have like the standard format that we're used to seeing with like the sidebar and like video, or you can actually like set up your course page different ways. You can change all the colors for individual courses. Like there's a tons of things you can do. And the two best things that I love is that it integrated directly with my Thrivecart cart and Active Campaign, and it was a one-time payment. So right now they're having it, it's not a subscription, it's just a lifetime payment and you've got it, which I was like, sold. I don't want to have to be paying for something every single month if I don't have to. With Learn Plus, you do have to host your videos elsewhere. So I have a Vimeo subscription that I host my videos on, but I was already doing that because of self-hosting on WordPress. So I was like, okay, this is fine. So that was kind of like my journey of how I have done the migration. And I'm still setting things up on Learn Plus. My current students, for those of you who are on the call, like you're like, wait, I haven't seen this come through yet because you're all still on Learn Dash. I'm going to pull you over to Learn Plus in the next month or two. But that's kind of been my journey and how I kind of settled, like moved through platforms, which can just show you that like you can read all the reviews, you can test things out, you can be a course creation expert that's seen all of these things, and you still don't know until you get your hands in there and you start playing with it and you hear students going through it and hearing their experience as well. And I love what you say here, Kim, about like saying, so Kim says, I'm a WordPress developer, but I always recommend that people host courses on course platforms because that's what they're designed to do. And they have teams making sure the user experience stays great for you and your students. Like, I think it's such a great point. And I totally agree. Like, yes, it's true. There's a lot of like functionality when it comes to self-hosting on your own site, but there's a lot of downsides to that I just do not recommend for most people, for sure. And then Camille's asking, so what do I have to pay for? So I have Thrivecart and Learn Plus, which were lifetime payments, so one-time pay. And then I have Active Campaign as well, yes. And I have Vimeo for my video hosting. And then I have my website hosting because my website's still on WordPress as well. So yeah, that's exactly like you said. So this is because a lot of those things I already had because I started as a one-to-one service provider and I still offer one-to-one services. So I already had my website, already had Active Campaign, kind of those things set up. So I just wanted to layer on something for courses. For people who are like, maybe don't necessarily need that, they just need a course site. In that case, looking at a platform like Thinkific or even like Kajabi, even though it's a bit expensive, kind of does have that all-in-one. So sometimes if you're like, I don't want to also have to pay for web hosting and this and that and the other, sometimes those all-in-one options can be a really great option as well. Finette, thank you so much for dropping the link in there. I super appreciate that. Okay, so those are all my thoughts on course platforms. So I'd love to check in and see if anyone has other questions around course platforms and those types of things. And then I also want to talk to you a little bit about like building your course materials, like recording videos and editing and stuff like that. But before I dive into that, I'd just love to hear if you have any questions or comments around course platforms. Yeah, Finette. I think you're muted.
I thought I did click the thing, it didn't click. I'm just very curious about Thrivecart. How user-friendly is it to create stuff in there? Because my Kajabi membership renews on like February 2nd. And I'm like, can I wing it? Can I move everything over by February 2nd? So I'm kind of curious how complicated it is or how simple it is to set up everything.
Yeah. Such a great question. So personally, I found it super simple. I'll be honest, my team is doing the majority of the migration, but before they got in there, I wanted to go in and play too, because I was like, if I want to be able to set something up, like, how do I do this? And it's very, like, I personally found it very straightforward. There's also a ton of tutorials, and Thrivecart has a Facebook community as well. So if you're like totally stuck and need support, there's that as well. I was already using Thrivecart as my cart software, and I did do that setup myself, and I found it really user-friendly, really straightforward as well. And then Learn Plus, to me, the back end of it didn't look that different from like a Thinkific or a Teachable. It's kind of like create your course, create your modules. I know what a lot of people do is they recommend creating kind of a template course and getting it to look and feel the way you want. And then if you have any other ones, then you can just duplicate it, and then you don't have to do all the design styling like again and again.
I saw somebody that had like a link for Thrivecart, and they were selling a template for the checkout, and that led me to understand that you needed to design your own checkout, which I thought was like, oh, just one more thing to do.
Oh yeah. So I definitely have seen people selling those like Thrivecart checkout templates. They have default templates that you can use where like they say like, do you want this one or this one or this one? And then like drop your logo here or whatever. Like there are options where you can really trying to like make it beautiful, but the baseline one like just functions, and it's pretty easy just to like click here and there. Like I didn't find it took me a lot of time. And I think it's one of those things where it can always be like, I will say the like, what is your Getmo? Like you're good enough to move on. So like, how do we get it like where it's like good enough? And then we can always go back and like make it functional. Yeah. So Dustin says, I lost more money trying Experienceify than Thrivecart costs. And then is it RQ? I want to make sure I'm pronouncing your name right. You can just unmute and let me know how to pronounce it. Yep, RQ. Okay, perfect. The Thrivecart default template's very passable. Yeah, like so they have a lot of options for like, do you want it to look like this? And then you can just kind of like pop things in. And I also just want to like clarify here, eventually down the road, I'm going to become an affiliate for Thrivecart. I haven't been approved as one yet because they have like a huge waiting list, but like I don't make any money by sending you to Thrivecart or Learn Plus. It's just because I'm using it and I'm like really excited about it. So I always like to say that where I'm not, you know, I see some people out there, and I'm not going to name names, but there are some big name people out there who are, for instance, like promoting Kajabi, but their course is not built on Kajabi, or they're like promoting Teachable and they're on like a custom designed platform. So I always make sure that like I only promote the things that I have personally used or am currently using, so that I can speak to the real experience of it. Okay, amazing. Any other questions before we move forward? Feeling good.
Can you speak about the difference between Thrivecart and Learn Plus?
Yeah, so Thrivecart's kind of the original company, and they started just being like a cart, like a shopping cart software. And then they launched Learn. So it's still under the same company. And there is like Learn and Learn Plus. Learn Plus is like, I think it's like under $200. Like, I don't think it's a lot for the pro upgrade. So the free Learn, I don't think has as much functionality. I'm not sure because I actually just jumped right into the paid one. So they speak to each other, but they're like, when you log in, you'll see they're like under the same banner. And I had something else I was going to say there. Nope, it's totally gone. If it comes back to me, I'll let you know. Okay, awesome. Did you have another question?
Questions, yeah, about Thrivecart. They don't have like a trial thing. Cause I'm really reluctant to drop in $600 and not even try it. It's just like, I've made many mistakes with my platforms before. That would be an expensive one.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm thinking, let's Vox about it, Finette, just because you're one of my private clients. We can talk about it, and maybe you and I can hop on a call and I can show you the back end of mine. Because I know, yeah, it's the no trial could be stressful for sure. Okay, awesome. So, and we'll have some more time for Q&A as well, like at the end of this call as well. So I just don't want you to feel like, oh, I didn't get my question answered right now. There'll be lots of time. But I just wanted to take a little bit of time and talk about the actual building of your course materials, because this is something else that I can see people get like really stressed about. Like, I have to record video, I have to edit video, I have to do all of these things. And the same way that I kind of said, like, I don't want you to stress about your course platform, I also really don't want you to stress about your course materials, because if you're showing up and you're taking the time to intentionally map out the journey for your people, you're spending that time on the design of your program. And when I say the design, I mean the architecting of the transformation. No one is going to be like, wow, this person's course changed my life. But man, those videos, like, I don't know. Or like, their workbooks were kind of ugly. Like, no one is going to comment on that if you are having an impact on them. Now, it's true that like beautiful visual design and like really well like recorded videos, like with like all videography and stuff like that, can like elevate the experience, especially if you're charging like a ton of money for it. But the thing that I want to share, just again, from like my own experience, like my first couple courses, I went really low tech. I'm like, right now I'm talking to you on like my laptop webcam. I don't even have an external webcam. And I used headphones like this, which is like the mic. And I just recorded my videos to my webcam, or I did like little screenshots or whatever. And I've had awesome feedback on those courses. And then for my signature courses, so like course creation magic and group program magic, I was like, I'm feeling fancy. So I want to do something like a little bit more, fancy and fun. So I have a DSLR camera and I set it up on the tripod, and I got like one of those, what are they called? Lavalier mics, or I can't remember what they're called, but the ones that are like, they pin like right here. And I set up my tripod and I like styled my background and like lit a candle and like made it beautiful. And I've gotten a lot of feedback as well on those, being like, wow, like they're so well produced and like they're so beautiful and like I love those. But the level of feedback was about the same. Like I didn't have anyone be like, wow, what really stood out to me from your course was how gorgeous your videos were. Honestly, one of the best feedback pieces I ever got was for one of my courses when we were doing the migration from Thinkific to LearnDash. The unedited version of my video got uploaded for, I think it was my welcome video. So it went something like this, like, hi, I'm Emily and welcome to group called Confidence. And I messed this up. Oh my goodness. And then I kind of like paused and then hi, and welcome to group called Confidence. I did the whole thing again. And the feedback I got from students being like, wow, it was actually like so nice to see you not be perfect. Like I feel like so relieved knowing that like I can do this for my course as well. And I think there is such a power in letting yourself show up as human and not being this like perfectly polished, like, like angel coming down from like the heavens to help them with their problems. And so I think it's something that you can like remind yourself of when you're starting to stress about the tech around your course. Is like, that is not the most important part. Some of the most impactful trainings I've ever attended have been like in a Google Drive, where it's like a Google, they've just uploaded the video and uploaded a Google Doc worksheet. And then I just like paid for it through like a payment gateway. There was no fancy course platform. There was nothing. We also sometimes see this happening in like Facebook groups. So people just live teach the course. So there's always an option for you depending on your skills and your time. And I know sometimes when we buy courses from like the bigger names and they're hiring like these really expensive videographers, we can be used to seeing things that are like really polished and really gorgeous. And it can make us feel like, well, if I can't achieve that, then like this is going to make my course not look very good. But the biggest things, like whether you're recording on your laptop webcam, whether you're recording on a DSLR camera, whatever it is, face a window so that you're well lit. Like lighting and audio quality are the two things that the reason they're important is because it can detract from how understandable or comprehensible you are. And that's the thing. It's not about how good you look or how professional it looks. It's about the fact that if they can't see you, or it's really grainy, or if they can't hear you, then that's impacting the learning experience. So face a window and like use headphones with a mic and you'll be good. So I just like to kind of remind us of that so that when it comes to our videos, they don't have to be this like gorgeous, beautiful thing. And similarly, when it comes to like our more printed materials, like our workbooks and stuff like this, I know we can also put pressure on ourselves to have these like beautifully designed PDFs that are like absolutely gorgeous. And like, I love a gorgeous PDF. Like, don't get me wrong. Like I like something that's well designed. I think it's the graphic designer in me is like, this is so beautiful. But again, at the end of the day, the most important thing is that the tools and the resources we give our students are able to be used by them so that they can take action. And so something in general that I recommend is that I love doing my course workbooks actually in Google Docs because it's way faster for you to create. First of all, you don't have to be like fussing in Canva, and it gives them unlimited space for their responses. Because this is something I see a lot in PDFs is that we design it and we kind of prescribe to our learners, like, your answer to this question should be this big. And yes, we can make it clickable and we can make it interactive, but at the end of the day, it's like we're still giving them a limited amount of space. So like my preferred option is to create something in Google Docs. You can also export a Google Doc as a PDF. So if they really needed a PDF version to put on their iPad or to print out or something, they still could do that. So again, it's not about having this thing that's like so gorgeously designed. It's more about, is it functional? And then there's like little tips and tricks that we can do to make things like look more aesthetically pleasing, like inserting photos and being consistent with our fonts. But if it's something that's stressing you out, it comes back again to that, like, giving yourself a break. Doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be gorgeous, because your course is a living creature. It is going to grow and evolve with you and your students. And you want to make sure that you're not spending so much time on the first iteration or the second iteration that when it comes time to like make little tweaks and updates, it then feels like, oh my goodness, I spent so much time and now I have to do this all again. So that is my soliloquy on creating videos and creating workbooks and PDFs and that type of thing. And so I would love to hear what questions you have when it comes to creating your course materials. I love Finette. We should include bloopers. That would be great. Like, here's what it actually looked like. Here's where my cat jumped off of the fireplace onto my face mid-recording. Had to edit that part out. Okay. Any questions? Feeling good?
Do you know that if you create your template in Canva and upload it into Google Docs, that it will still give you that space?
Oh, I did not know that.
No, I'm asking you.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying you could do that. No, I don't think it will, because usually with Canva, when you're choosing what you're exporting it as, you're either exporting it as a PDF or you're exporting it as like a JPEG or a PNG or something like that. So in general, when I'm deciding like how to create materials, I ask myself, like, how do I want my learner to use this? So if it's something that's like, I just need to share the information with them, so like a welcome guide, I'll probably do that as a PDF because there's nothing that they need to interact with. If it's a checklist where their interaction isn't impacting how the text moves and things like that, then I might also do that as like a PDF. Like, here's a resource guide, here's a checklist, here's, I don't know, a process, like here's my 10-step process for recording videos or something like that. It's not 10 steps. I don't actually know how many steps are in my process. Things that are kind of like a tool or a resource or a reference that they're not having to interact with, I'll do that as a PDF. Pretty much everything else I'm going to do as a Google Doc, just because then, one, most people use Google Drive, so it's easy for them to make their own copy. They can add their notes in. If they want to print it, they can print it. And it's also so much faster to create because you're not like fussing with like alignment and boxes and all this stuff. It's just like, put it in here. And so for those of you who aren't in the course builder box, this is like a small little toolkit I have. I do have Google Doc templates in there and little tips and tricks for how to just create it like relatively fast. I know Camille says like, I'm using it and I love it, which yay, I'm so glad you love it. It's just something I created because I just think that the most important thing is getting your course out there in the world, and we can always polish and refine it later.
Thank you.
Okay. Dustin says I start everything in Google Docs. Yes. Yeah, and Camille says, I struggle deciding between something that looks good and perfectly formatted versus something that expands and shifts the text. The struggle is real. I received your short course as a bonus long time ago, not even sure where, and I came across it again just when I needed it, which I'm so glad. That's amazing. And yeah, it's so true. The struggle of like having things that like look good and they're formatted and they're beautiful versus something that's like functional, like function should always win at the end of the day. And then, yeah, Dustin says like, it's good for having accessible copies of your content for those who need it, which is the other thing, is always making sure like we're thinking about accessibility in our programs from terms of like how things are going to be read by like a screen reader, or for people who are neurodiverse and need to, you know, consume content in different ways. The more options we can give our people, you know, the better. And also like I sound like such a Google Docs fanatic, but you can also make them pretty too. You don't always have to like sacrifice like, okay, this one's functional, but it's not that pretty. Like you can embed images and like there's little tips and tricks you can do. You know, I had a client who was a graphic designer, and it took me a long time to convince her to build things in Google Docs. But once I showed her what was possible, she's like, oh, yay, now I can make this beautiful workbook. So it is possible. Oh my goodness, so many great questions. So now what I would love to do is just kind of open it up for whatever questions you have. Like if you have more questions about tech and creating new materials and course platforms, or if you just have questions about your programs in general that you're working on or thinking of working on, really this time is yours. So totally happy to answer whatever comes up for you. You can go ahead and either pop your question in the comments if you don't want to come on camera, or you can just start talking or use the raise hand feature, whatever feels accessible to you. Okay, Dustin says, have you ever had anyone get upset that your course was primarily in Google Docs? No, never. I've never had any complaints about it. The only thing I had was I had one person who really was not Google Docs savvy. And so I realized I had to record like a tutorial of like, here's how to set up your drive, and here's how to make a copy, and here's how to use these things. So like not assuming that people actually know what a Google Doc is. Because I realized that I was like, oh, everyone knows how to use Google. But then I had someone who was just hadn't used it before. Great question. I know it's always like kind of like the introvert standoff where it's like, I don't want to be the first person to ask a question, but like, maybe I have a question, so it's okay. You can be the first one.
I'm going to jump in, and this is somewhat to, I think, RQ, you had mentioned that you were a Notion consultant on the last call. I was thinking, because I do all of my brainstorming and drafting within Notion. And so with one of my mini courses, I made a Notion template as kind of a bonus. Like I did a nicely designed PDF and then a Notion template. But I was thinking after Monday's course Café, when you talked about giving that kind of like action plan, what if I built the whole kind of ecosystem for each client for my group program within Notion, so that there can be that like, task list that they can interact with and check off on the go, as well as a folder with all of the lesson materials, rather than doing it, or I guess I could do it in Google Doc as well and just export it, but then we're not getting that same kind of like one source of truth for how they're progressing through the action. What do you like? Have you seen, to this question, pushback on Google Docs? Have you seen pushback on things like that? Like, I don't want to tell people you have to use this platform, but I think it's a great tool and it could serve the needs.
Yeah, for sure. So my client, Marie, her whole course is in Notion because she is like a Notion genius. I don't know if you've come across it. It's Notion Mastery. And we actually designed the whole course in Notion because we knew that everyone who was going to be buying the course was going to be in that platform already. So this is a great example of like kind of thinking outside of the box, of not feeling like it has to be in a course platform, it has to look a certain way. Now, the caveat that I like to give is, like you said, in your case, if your people might not want to be open to learning a new platform, then it can be a barrier to the experience. Mm-hmm. So if it's something, I think the way to do it really well would be to provide a lot of tutorials and a lot of scaffolding around like, here's how to use this course, and here's how to use Notion, and here's how to find this. So like assuming that they know absolutely nothing and walking them through it step by step. I love the idea of having things more integrated. And I think, again, it kind of comes down to the like how you want them to use those tools and worksheets. If it's the type of thing where like right on the Notion page, you can just ask the questions and they don't have to go download something separate, then I love that idea. Yeah. Because, sometimes people are like, oh, I just end up with like all these different downloads and I can't remember where I put things. Versus if it's like a very specific structure, like they're, I don't know, building out a brand resource guide, or they're building out something, that's where having it in the final format, like if the end result is going to be a PDF or the end result is going to be a Google Doc, having the work being done in that as well could be really helpful, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that just gave me an idea. So that's good. And then I'm thinking of putting everything. So I had started in Mighty Networks on the business plan, hosting courses in there, mm-hmm. but then moved away from that because in my mind, I was like, well, my courses can serve beyond just the kind of target market for my Mighty Networks group. my courses can stand alone as well. But now I'm thinking of bringing it all back in just because I really do mostly want to serve one type of person, one type of clientele, which is what my community is built for. So I'm going to move everything back into there, but now I'm kind of left with like, I don't want to run my transactions through there. And it doesn't have the email list capability. So then I was still looking at other platforms like Go High Level is one that I was just playing with, obviously Kajabi, but it's just too expensive. Or do I just get a separate email platform? Like, I don't really have a question. I'm just telling you
thinking out loud.
now.
Yeah, for sure. So I really think what helped me kind of try to decide is like, sometimes I just make my options list, like option A, this stays on Mighty Networks, and then I buy Kajabi and it costs this much and these are the features it gives me, versus I don't stay on Mighty Networks and I move everything to Thrivecart and Learn Plus and here's what it gives me. Like I would just kind of make a list of like, here's the functionality that I need. Now here are my 3 options of how I can stack things together. I think that's kind of what I would play around with and ultimately choose what feels like the least work for you. And then I think for your students is whatever's going to make them not have to bounce around too many different platforms, and it sounds like, for the people who are like very heavy Notion users and things like that, saying it is a very like high learning curve. And so I think having it be, like you said, like the plan being a bonus, like here's your action plan if you want to like import this into Notion if you're a Notion user already, but having the content accessible somewhere else. Like I think Camille says, like I'm in a course where everything's in Trello, but an option's provided for those who don't want to use it. Unless a tool is essential to the learning journey, like this is a Trello course, this is a Notion course, it's always nice to have options because then it just feels less stressful for people.
Totally. Yeah, those are good points. Thank you.
And what you can always do too, like if you're kind of like playing around with different like stacks and course platforms and things like that, is you can always come to another cafe and be like, this is what I'm thinking. And then we can like chat through your kind of more reduced options.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I love it. Such a good question. And thank you so much, everyone, for like your feedback around Notion too in the comments. I love this. What other questions do people have for me?
I have a question. What form, when you're doing an audio, what are you using? What form are you using to do your, like, are you using Zoom? Are you using Loom? Like, what's the best platform to use for your video content?
Yeah, for sure. So are you a Mac or a PC user?
Mac.
Okay. So what I usually do is I actually record my video content if I'm on the computer using QuickTime. It's built in to your computer and it's free. Just because Zoom and Loom are both internet based. And so Zoom in particular, like we know we've all been on a Zoom call where it kind of like, and like it like kind of cuts out or whatever. And so you don't want that to happen when you're in the middle of recording your video. And then you're like, where did it glitch and what happened? I will say the one advantage to recording on Zoom is it has that like face smoothing feature. So you can be like Instagram filter glow is the one advantage. But in general, I recommend recording on QuickTime. It's super easy. It's free. And then you can just edit it in, there's built-in, there's iMovie for like super basic edits on your Mac. Or if you want to pay for video editing software, I love Camtasia. It's really, really robust. Camtasia.
Camtasia. And is that like a Zoom?
Camtasia's video editing software.
Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, Dustin's point, like, yeah, Zoom lowers the quality when exporting. Loom is really great if you're doing a screen share. Like I want to walk you through something that's on my screen. I don't really like using it when it's just face to cam. Isn't the best. If you're thinking of recording on slides, it can be good, but I know now in Canva, you can actually record right in Canva, which I haven't personally done. So I don't know if anyone's on this call has like used like the Canva like slide and recording feature. Feel free to like comment on that. And then Descript is another one that's being commented on. And again, I haven't used it personally, but I've heard amazing things about it because it lets you it helps you add captions and edit your video at the same time.
I definitely like the caption aspect.
Yeah, so Descript might be one that's worth looking into for you because I've heard that it is really user friendly.
Well, the main thing about Descript is that if you can edit by just deleting some sentences, and it's going to delete that whole part of your videos. You don't have to actually go, and you can remove the ums and the ahs, and it's brilliant. It's really brilliant.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I think I'm gonna have to look into Descript more. I one of my clients recommended it to me, and then it's just been popping up more and more. And I'm like, oh, I just love to check this out. Cause I know like right now I record a video and then I upload it to Temi to get the transcript, and then I clean up the transcript, and then you get kind of some strange things when it's a computer generated transcript, that's for sure. So it's always a bit of a process.
Does the script host the video also?
I don't think it does. No, I think you have to then export it and host it somewhere.
So like you would record it there and then export it in like Venmo or something like that?
I think you would still record it on, can you record into Script? People have used a Script. Yeah. If you can, Dustin, go ahead. Someone was talking.
Well, I was just gonna say, I wouldn't treat that as the recording thing. It's good for just doing screen shares. But I would record like on my phone or on a camera and then import it into Descript and then do the editing and then export it back out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, so many options, but I love the sound of this one for sure. All right. Oh, good to know. Dustin says Descript just updated for camera only recording. So it sounds like it might be a good place for you to start, Davida, and just see, and then you can always fill in the gaps with like stuff that's built into your computer, like QuickTime or iMovie or like that type of thing.
Which I've never used on my computer.
There's a first time for everything, right? Awesome. Thank you. Any other questions that people may have?
So to clarify, I've copied the bookmark, the link to a file on Descript that I've edited, and then I paste it in like Notion, and then you can see it's like an embed link, and I can it's like copying from YouTube and pasting it in Notion, so people can play it while you are in the other platform.
Okay. So I wonder if like Robin, like if your course platform lets you put a link in for embed, if it would pull from Descript.
So the cool part is that people can also see the transcript. So I can read the transcript and like quickly jump to that part instead of scrubbing a YouTube video. So that's like, it's so much faster to like quickly read through something.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. It's so that like, I know, like you said, like having to like scrub through and then be like, where's this part? I mean, as I've said so many times, please make your videos really short. Like that's like one of the most important things. Try to keep your videos super short. Like I love under 5 minutes. If you can do like 7 minutes, once you start hitting 10 minutes, I might have to come to your house and be like, no, break it smaller. So try to keep your videos short, but also I love having that, like that potential to be able to skim through, I think is so great. Yeah. So many great options here. Okay, so we still have time for some more questions if anyone wants. So just you can use the raise hand feature or you can put it in the chat, but I'll just let you know, we do have 2 more course cafes coming up next week. So on Monday at noon Pacific is the launch cafe. So this is where I'm going to share kind of different approaches you can take to launching, because I think we've sometimes can feel like there's only one right way to do things and like it has to look a certain way, and we all know that's not my jam. So I like to share the different options you have available to you. I'll kind of talk about my own experience with launches and my client experiences, and so we can chat about your different options and what's going to work best for you. And then on Wednesday we have behind the scenes cafe, which is where I'm just going to kind of take you behind the scenes of the things I've been working on. So I have been doing a huge upgrade to my group program, the incubator, and so I want to kind of take you behind the scenes and show you what that looks like, how I designed it, why I designed it that way. You'll also get to see behind the scenes in Learn Plus as well, if you're curious. And then I can also show you kind of my old courses in Learn Dash if you're curious to kind of see that type of thing. And as you know, I'm such an open book. So if there's anything else that you want to see in those behind the scene cafe, you just let me know and I'm happy to show you. And then as always on both those cafes, there'll be tons of time for Q&As as well. And so yes, to answer your question, Camille, I do share the recordings. So the recordings for this week, so Mondays and today's, will be sent out on Friday, and recordings for next week will be sent out the following Friday. I just decided to wait to send you one link to both things to keep things easy. But I'm just like, thank you so much, everyone, for coming and asking such great questions and sharing like your own tech experiences. Because as we can see, tech can be a bit of a nightmare and it can be really overwhelming because there's so many different options. So it's always just great to hear from someone who's actually used it to be like, this is how I used it and this is what I found. So any other questions before we wrap up? Questions, comments, things you would like to see or hear? Feeling good. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, everyone. This was like just so wonderful. It was so nice to have you all and like see you all again. And I hope to see you on Monday. And in between now and then, if you think of something like, oh, I wish I'd asked this on Wednesday about tech, you can always message me on Instagram, Modern Leaders Co. I'm always happy to answer questions that way. And I hope to see you all again on Monday. So have a great week. Bye.